Alrighty. Uh-oh. I hope everything's still working. The dumb stream monitor seems like it's screwed up again. Nope, looks like it's good. Hello everyone. Hi. Welcome in. Happy to be here for yet another Moonshire Monday. And hopefully the delay between the stream and actually where you see me is gonna be cleared up soon. I've noticed that like the beginning of the streams have always had a lot more delay than when the stream actually starts, like in the middle of the stream. So I think I'm gonna start doing some kind of like intro video or like a 5-minute countdown timer when the stream starts. Cause right now I always notice that, yeah, an ad, someone else mentioned ads. I don't want that to be interrupting the experience for anyone, but thank you so much for being here. I'm going to get started in just a second. I wanted to make sure that I have everything ready to go. Alrighty, and we got a lot of people in chat already. Thank you all so much for being here. We got Adele, we got Sapphire, we got Laren, Enz, The Real Danny. A lot of folks were chatting before stream even started. Bub and Reen was here earlier, Animatrix, BSSMDE. Very, very nice to see you all. I'm very happy to see so many people in chat and a lot of similar names that I recognized from last week too. A lot of returning folks. I appreciate you stopping in every week, and I'm gonna keep this up. I've been enjoying our streams a lot. It's been great. The goat is back. Thank you, Juvix. Uliverus, Smudek, Celso, Timothy, McFamily. Hydrate, thank you. I do have a problem with forgetting to hydrate during my streams. My teaching transformed me from UX consultant to confident coder after 10 years. Love your course, pun intended. Thank you. Awesome. I'm happy to hear that. That's so cool. That's a really kind thing for you to say. Is it me or is the streamer lag? Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out some of the details. Especially at the start of the stream, I noticed that the lag is a little bad towards the beginning of the stream, but within a few minutes it clears up. So that's why I think having like a 5-minute countdown would help with this introduction part. It's lagging for me too. Yeah, I have this experience pretty much every stream where the beginning is worse. So hopefully within a few minutes, it should clear itself up. Rescue Squad, welcome in. Yeah, lag in the stream bothers me. I really wish I could get the, whoa, that was weird. I really wish I could get the latency down as, what is going on? Congrats on hitting 100K. Thank you, appreciate that. That was kind of weird how I like slid forward so fast right there. I don't know what caused that. None come close to my course. That's so kind of you. Yeah, I try to have high quality and high standards for the, if I'm charging money for a course, yeah, especially. How are animations made in love, like fine-tune animation, for example? Well, so animations, they can be handled through a sprite or like through like a sprite sheet. So here, I'll pull up an example of an animation. Give me one moment. I need to pull up my Explorer. I need to pull up Moonshire. So like animations for a character. Here's what one of the sprite sheets for the character looks like. And for example, this row here, whoops, all of these, this is the walking animation. So it just cycles through each individual frame to get the animation in place. So this is one option for doing animation, but then there's another option, which is animating it using like tweens. So like the petals falling from the sky, it's not animation, it's just, you know, it's just moving. Or the smoke coming out of the chimney. It's an animated sprite, but I'm also animating it like by tweening the position upward, so it has a bit of movement to it. Or a better example, the best example is probably the grass on the ground. So you can see like the flowers or the grass, it sways in the wind. And that's not animated using a tile, or it's not animated using a sprite sheet like this. It's animated by just tweening the rotation slowly over time. And that's what gives it the animation. So a lot of it is handled through a combination of those things. One thing I would like to do is like the trees here. I don't like how the trees are animated. The trees are animated using sprite sheets, and it looks very stiff. I think that there's probably a way for me to animate the trees similar to how I animate the grass. Or also the sunflowers have an animation like that too, where I animated these sunflowers where they sway in the wind. You can see the individual leaves have their own animations to it, and when I like touch the sunflower too, it moves around. But is this made without being a massive pain? Well, I mean, it's going to be a massive pain to animate anything. But yeah, I'd say in general, animating things from a code editor is harder than animating things from like Unity or something like that. But at the end of the day, it is still the same thing. You're still taking individual pieces and tweening their values over time. Maybe Unity has special tools to help with that, but I don't think it's going to be too much easier. Did I get a haircut? No, but I'm using a different product. I think I'm going to get a haircut this week, though. Ripple shader on the trees, leaves would look good. Yeah, I think I'm going to try and do something similar to what I did with the sunflower here. Because the way I did the sunflower is really clever. Let me see if I can pull that up. So if I pull up the sunflower actually has 3 pieces to it. So here's the first piece. It's just the base. It's the stem and the flower. But then there's this layer. It's a leaf layer. And then there's another leaf layer. So the combination of these 3 layers together creates the sunflower. And then when they each sway with their own animations, it has this ripple effect where it ends up looking very nice, like it does here. If you look very closely at the leaves, they're not all in sync. The diagonals to each other are, but there's enough of a offset between them that it gives it that wind sway effect. And it's the same with the flowers and the grass. The different leaves, the different blades of grass, they don't sway exactly in tandem. They sway independently, but that's what makes the effect work, is the offset. Lua is a programming language, and Godot is an engine, very different. Yeah, well, Lua is the language, but Love2D is the engine. You know, the word engine and framework is debatable, because I'm pretty sure there are places where Love2D considers itself an engine. But at the same time, I think typically people call it a framework, and a framework is really lightweight. It's just a bunch of like coding libraries like this. And then in order to design levels, you actually have to use a level editor that's separate, and then import all of this data, like this level data, into your game project. It is kind of a pain. So going back to what Unlaren was saying earlier, it is kind of a pain in the butt sometimes to work with a framework, just because you don't get the quality of life tools that an engine gives you. Do I already have my play button? It's on the way. I just requested it 2 days ago. Do I use state machines? No. I mean, I use states, like different things have different states. Like here, self.state equals 1. So this is the weapon state. And if the state is 1, that means it's being carried by the player. And if the state is 0, that means it's on the ground. And these different states result in different actions, because I bet there's multiple places where, yeah, if self.state is equal to 1, then do this. And if it's not, then it does something else. Or like, in this case, it's always visible, but if it's carried by the player, then it has to be the right animation for it to be visible. Do I also know other game engines and languages? Yeah, I know lots of languages. So I was a software developer before going full-time with game development. So I know plenty, like Java and C++ and C# and Python. And there's plenty of them that I used throughout my career. But now, typically, I'm just coding in Lua. And other game engines, the only game engine that I used extensively before Love2D is GameMaker. I used GameMaker for a very long time, from when I was probably in like 4th or 5th grade, so like that's like 10 years old, up until I was probably 18. So a long time of using GameMaker, and it's debatable on if GameMaker is actual coding, but I got a lot of the fundamentals in place from using GameMaker. I prefer frameworks over engines. I mean, yeah, in general I do too. Because the lightweight aspect of it is really nice. I like that Love2D is open source. That's really cool. And really, any gaps, you can find open source software online that kind of fills in any issues. So like the animation library, I didn't like how it was built into Love2D, so I found an animation library called Animate. If I go over to my libraries, there I have this libraries folder, and this is where I have, these are all just open source libraries that someone else wrote, and I'm able to call these, like this when it called Animate. I use this to help with animation stuff, but really it's still kind of a pain in the butt, because all the animation stuff isn't particularly easy. Like if I go to I was just working on one recently, maybe Player anim. Yeah, so with the anims, you still have to define a grid and then the specific speeds, and well, the speeds are actually applied to, what is it? Oh, the anim grid takes the player grid, so there's just a lot of working pieces to this. I wouldn't say it's very streamlined. I'd still bet animation is a lot easier in something like Unity. I think Game Maker is great for learning coding because you don't have to worry about the engine part too much. Yeah, totally. It's very approachable, and I think that aspect of it matters a lot. How many monitors do I have? I have one, but it's a very ultra-wide monitor. It's a 49-inch, what is it, 5,000 pixels by 1440. It's very wide, so super, super, super wide. And so this middle section that you see here, this is just the very center of the monitor. And then I have other stuff on the sides that you guys can't see. I'm playing the demo right now. Is there a way to 100% it? No, but like, I think the max percentage is 20 something maybe. I can't remember. What am I working on in this week? It's hard to say. So the first thing that I worked on was I changed the pause menu. It's gonna look a little bit weird because the window's kind of a square right now. But with this pause menu, there was always this point of contention of, do I want to pause the whole game when you pause the game? Like when you go into this inventory here, does it pause everything? And on one hand, yeah, because if I'm in the middle of a fight and like someone knocks on my door, it would be nice if I could just pause the game and get up and go check the door. That'd be nice. But on the other hand, there's games like Dark Souls or Elden Ring, they don't have pausing. Like when you open up your inventory, you're still vulnerable. And fortunately, in my game, there's no urgent pressing need to open up the inventory and mess around in here, because like my game doesn't have healing like it does in the Zelda games. You would only go into the inventory to change your color around. That's the main reason, or check the map or the settings. But all those things don't need to be done urgently in combat. So what I ended up changing is, if you're in a safe area with no enemies, it doesn't pause the game at all. Like, you can see the animations are still running, the petals are still falling. If the player had an idle animation, it would be playing that right now, but I don't have that enabled at the moment. And then, if we go somewhere that's dangerous, like over here, I think I can spawn a fight. Oh, nope, this way. And if we're in the middle of a fight, if the area is dangerous, that's when it's going to true pause, fully pause the game, and you'd be able to like get up and walk away from your computer if you needed to. So I'm going to demonstrate that. So right now, if I pause the game, it's just normal. But if I am in the middle of a fight, like if I spawn this fight, get that started, and then if I pause, it like makes the screen go dark, and it pauses everything in the back. Actually, the animations are still running, but the enemies are not moving around at all. Like they're stuck in place. I can like pause in midair. Actually, let's see if I can. Yeah, there he is. He's like floating midair because it's true pausing while we're in combat. But if I were to clear this fight, it would probably go back to being the safe mode. He can walk on water. Why that over just true pausing? Well, because true pausing makes the game become silent and static. Well, not silent, but when you true pause the game, it makes everything stop. And I don't want things to stop. I want the music to continue. I want the player to be able to be seen. So like when I pause right now, you can still see the player, you can see his animations, and if I were to go over here, I can change my color. You can still see the player, so you can change between your colors really easily. And that's a big reason not to. But true pausing is nice because, like I said, it keeps you safe in the middle of combat. How come the animations are still running? Well, it's actually, I can show that, because if I go to update, this is all the stuff that gets frozen. Oh, wait. Yeah, this is the stuff that gets frozen with true pause. So all of this stuff up here does not get frozen with true pause. And I could move anything down to this bottom section to keep it from updating. Like I could change trees. Someone mentioned trees. Let's make it so that the trees... Let's make it so all of these. So when you pause, the trees are going to stop, the plants are going to stop, and the grass is going to stop, but only during the true pause. During a regular pause, those things won't be affected. Those are still going to be updated normally. And we can see that if we pause, the grass is still moving. The tree in the corner, whoops, the tree in the corner is still moving. The banner's still moving. But if I go over here, let's go ahead and spawn that fight again. And I'm expecting that when this fight starts and I do a true pause, that any tree that we see on screen or the grass, I think all of it's going to stop moving completely. Okay, there. Well, okay. So the tree did stop. The tree stopped and the grass stopped swaying. But we can see that these spikes here, these are still moving. And also the water is still rippling. So I could take this further. And let's see. I think it's called spikes. I don't know why that's still being updated. What's my favorite game or which games inspired me to create Moonshire? I'd say the most inspirational game is Link's Awakening. But my favorite game at the moment, I love Elden Ring so much. I think Elden Ring is the coolest and most impressive game ever made. Would I recommend Love2D for game dev if you want to have an open mind about doing coding as a job one day? Well, sure. Being a coder as a job, you're going to have to pick up new languages and new stuff and new knowledge and new skills anyway. The coding language that you have experience with doesn't really matter that much because it's all going to be different. Even if you use Java day to day, going to a job where you have to use Java, you're still going to have to pick up a lot of the nuances of using their code base. And what I'm trying to get at is coding in one language doesn't matter. It's when you code a lot, you get good at coding in general, and you can apply those skills to all languages. So sure, if Love2D is something that interests you, I think that would be a great choice because it's a little bit challenging and it forces you to really understand your code. And that part's really good. But in terms of it being a preparation for a job, that's kind of irrelevant because it's just all about how good of a coder you are. It doesn't matter which one you choose. You could argue that C# is more widely used in the software coding industry, and maybe that one's better. But at the same time, if you're really good at coding in Lua, picking up C# is really, really easy. So it really doesn't matter that much. As long as you're doing coding in a language that you like or that you enjoy or whatever, that's the only thing that matters. I hate that they stand on water when I kick them out there. The chat comments probably are a little bit bigger. Will I make a sequel? It just depends on how this game does and how much interest I have in it. If I did a sequel, it would probably be in a different engine because I think I'm probably going to get everything I can out of this engine with Moonshire. Where can you download the game? There's a link in the description. Or maybe it's not. Maybe you have to look up Moonshire on Steam. Under Armour shirt, forgot they existed. I just found it in my drawer and I'm like, dang, this is comfy. No, ever since I stopped working and I've been working from home, I just wear sweatpants and like comfy clothes every day, all day, and it's the best. Do I intend to make obfuscation in the source code of my game? So yes, that comes down to when mod support comes into play. I've been talking about mod support for a long time, but it's still not here because things keep changing. But obfuscation would be like kind of what I did with the enemies. So if I go to the enemy code, there's a lot of enemy code. Look at all this enemy. These are multiple files, dozens of files, all for enemy code. But it is obfuscated behind all these codes, or all these code files, and making a new enemy, I don't have to worry about any of these files at all. I just need to make like a slime file. So this is the slime file. All of that logic for enemies stuff is obfuscated, and all that you need to know for the slime is just whatever specific aspects about it. So this is all of its animations. This is its physics, width and height. This is what shadow it uses. Its health and speed. So these are all specific like properties of the enemy, but the code itself is obfuscated behind all of these enemy files. What OS do I use and what will be supported? So I use Windows, but I also have a couple Macs here that I work off of because the game is currently available on Windows and Mac for the demo except for Intel Macs are having problems. And the goal at the end of all of this is to have it fully available for Windows, all Macs, and Linux as well. because Linux is needed for the Steam Deck validation, and I really want that. How do you get the achievement in the demo? I'm afraid that you can't get it at the moment. I removed the thing that it's associated with. So there used to be a system where you could attach gemstones to jewelry, and I took that out. Instead, there's still going to be gemstones and there's still going to be jewelry, but it's going to be done in a very different way. Pippa, hi, welcome in. This is the exams week, so can you give studying tips? Ooh, that's tricky. Yeah, I mean, the only good way to study is just to do it. I don't even remember. It's been so long since I had to study for something. I had to study a lot for my coding interviews, and I do remember studying in school all the time. My method of studying is really... So like with math, for example, the way I study math is just studying a bunch of individual problems so that I memorize the process over and over again. So a lot of studying is just memorization, but with something like coding or math, you do want to internalize the skills because they carry over into your follow-up classes. I haven't really noticed that with other subjects, but I wish I had better advice. Erica, hi, welcome in, Pro Devil. I really love the way you explain how the code works and how you show it. Yeah, I like that aspect too, just because I know that's what I would have wanted when I was starting out. And also, I could talk about my code all day and never get bored. It's like my favorite subject, so I'm happy to do that. Inspired me to make games. I'm finishing a prototype currently. You're in middle school, you don't have much time to code. I mean, that's perfectly fine. You have your whole life ahead of you. It's the lovely thing. I started coding when I was in middle school with Game Maker. So as long as you keep it up, this is the thing about any creative field or any creative hobby, is that you will succeed in that field as long as you keep doing it and you never stop. So you said you're in middle school. Just keep it up. If you do this for 10 years, you're gonna be like 20 or whatever, in your early 20s, and you're gonna be a phenomenal coder, a phenomenal developer, and you'll be able to do whatever you want. And that same advice applies to someone who is 30 right now. You'll be amazing when you're 40 if you keep doing this every day for 10 years. And in fact, you'll probably be even better because a fully grown adult is able to pick up on skills a lot faster than young people. At least I've noticed, personally. I feel like I've gotten better at picking up new skills as I got older. Do I believe that anyone can make a game with enough dedication? Well, totally. It also depends on the type of game you want to make, because if you set your standards like really low at first, like for example, anyone could make Pong. It's going to be tricky to make Pong, but anyone could do it. You just have to spend however long it takes. It's going to be a different amount of time for everyone. It might be a week for one person. It might be a couple months for another person, but anyone could do it. It's just going to take a while. And then you're just expanding your scope from there. Like go up from Pong to Space Invaders. That's always the two that I give. Pong, then Space Invaders, then like Atari Breakout, and just keep making it more and more difficult. And yeah, like at that point, you've already succeeded in becoming a game developer, because once you make Pong, you've made a game, and you are therefore a game developer. So I think anyone can. I think you mentioned you play an instrument. I play a lot. I shouldn't say a lot of instruments, but when I was in elementary/high school, I played saxophone. When I was in college and a little bit after, I was playing bass guitar or upright bass. And now, just like in my apartment on my own, I play guitar, and that's my main instrument that I play on my own. But I still think I'm competent at the other two as well, because I actually had to relearn saxophone for a gig that I did a year or so ago, and that was a lot of fun to have to relearn an instrument that I hadn't practiced since I was in high school, which would have been like 10 years ago. Yeah, about 10 years ago, I think. Will I add the sky area, high elevation areas, light in the clouds? Yeah, well, so that's in the demo actually, and because you can take that elevator up into the sky area, but in this 0.4 update that I'm working on, it's actually not going to be available right now, because I'm focusing more on making these surface maps and the underground map. These are going to be fleshed out really, really nicely, and then once the game is fully ready and it's out, that's when it's going to open up more of the sky map. And I've been super excited recently, because finally I've been able to trim down this game into a size that I feel capable of achieving. It's so funny looking at like the videos that I made 2 years ago, because I was working on this game for since then, at least. And the scope that I wanted this game to be was hilariously big. It's like I wanted there to be more than just 3 maps. The story was so ambitious. The story was something like you start in Moonshire, which is one world, and then you get warped to a whole new planet, and this new planet had its own set of sky, underground, and surface areas. And then after you cleared these areas, then you'd be warped back to Moonshire, which had its own set of maps. And it's like, oh my gosh, I was already planning so much content from the very beginning. And now after all these years, you would think the scope would keep getting bigger after all these years, but it's ironic that it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and that sounds like a bad thing, right? It sounds bad that I'm removing content or I'm removing plans, but I don't see it as a bad thing at all. All I see it as is it's just making the game more achievable. And also, when you have to make cuts, you're choosing to cut the worst aspects of it. So anytime that I'm making cuts, it's something that I'm personally not excited about or that I don't feel adds to the game very much. And this means that everything that's left is actually really good and solid, and I love it. So I have very high standards for all the stuff that's in the game, and I'm just excited for the direction everything's going. If I'm working on a team, what do you recommend to do when not needed for the game at the moment? Sorry, to do when you are not needed for the team at the moment. I mean, that's always a tricky thing, and that's something I'm going to have to be. Excuse me. That's something I'm going to have to address very soon, because I have a couple guys that are going to be helping me out very soon. They're coming over and they're going to be working here with me on videos a couple times a week, and I'm really excited for that. But at the same time, that is something that I'm worried about too. In case, like, what if we finish up one video, but not all the stuff for the next video is ready, or one of us runs out of things to do, and I don't want them to just be sitting around, and I'm paying them for their time. So I do have to plan ahead a lot of things that you can do, and it's a hard thing for me to recommend because I don't know what you're capable of, and I don't know what your experience is in, and I don't know what tasks need to be done. But generally, you just have to collaborate with your team and see what there is to do. And like, if you were working for me, for example, I probably would be able to find something for you to do. That's not something that I'm personally struggling with. There's probably always going to be something, but you might need to pick up some new skills, or you could spend that time learning. That's another thing, is that you could spend that time like picking up 3D modeling, or how to do pixel art better, or texturing, or level design, or learning a new coding language, or experimenting with a new game engine. Those things aren't wastes of time, because if you're improving your skills, you can use those skills to your next project, and therefore it's not a waste. But I'm with you that it is hard sometimes to figure out what to prioritize and what everyone should be working on at any given time. You're a programmer in Unity. Yeah, I think Unity is really good. I'm currently listening to, I have a problem where I start reading a chat, and then like I skip ahead and start reading the next sentence without finishing, and then I just mix up all my words. I'm sorry about that. I think it's a have to add secret waterfall rooms in games like these as well. You might be happy to know that there may or may not be a little secret behind there. School seems fun in America. Here in Algeria, the only fun 2 hours in the week are sports. We don't even do experiments in science class. I'd say in general, American schools are pretty fun. I enjoyed my time in school, but it is still hard and it's still intense. It's not like TV shows, because you watch like Disney Channel TV shows, and it makes high school seem like a fun time, but in reality, you really are sitting in a classroom for 50 minutes at a time, and the time that you're in the hallway at your locker, it's like you get 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes in the hallway that you can chat with your friends, and then it's back to the next class for another 50 minutes. So I wouldn't say it's fun. It's still arduous, and it's still annoying. I am so glad I don't have to go back to school. I don't miss it at all. But only 2 hours a week for sports is kind of, that's pretty lame, because we would get a little bit more relaxation time than that. How do you deal with isolation related to working so much on the computer? Ooh, I mean, I struggle with that personally. I do have that problem because I work from home and I work by myself. I mean, I collaborate a little bit with people online, but in general, I do everything on my own. I hit 100K. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I've been excited about 100K for a while. I don't know how to best really deal with it, because the way I cope with it is I go out once in a while. I visit my parents at least once a week, probably more than that. And I visit my friends once or twice a week too. I make sure that I'm still chatting with people every day. And then like the Discord server, I mean, that's still online interaction, but it's better than being super isolated. It basically feels like a COVID extension for me, if we're being honest. Do I have a cat? Yeah, I do. I think I can show her. There she is. She's sleeping. Her name's Misty. I'm excited for the silver play button. Yeah, I'm very excited. I just requested it this weekend because they just sent me the message about it. But yeah, you have to, once you hit 100K, you have to wait for a few days, and then they send you a notification that you can order it, and then they should be on this way soon. But as soon as it arrives, I'm gonna be taking a picture and posting it in the community channel on Misty from Pokemon. Maybe I actually don't know, because so Misty, she's probably 17 years old. She's an older cat, and we got her when I was a kid. When I was probably 13, I would guess. And at the time, I was a Pokemon fan, but it was my sister that named her. But she was also a fan of Pokemon, and we watched the show, so it's possible that she was named after Misty from Pokemon. I don't know. I don't like that wasn't something that we intentionally did if she was named after named after Pokemon Misty. She's so old. She doesn't seem old though. She behaves like a kitty because she's scared of everyone. Do I watch sports? No, I'm afraid not. I'm not really interested. Excuse me. I'm not interested in sports very much. Have my parents played Moonshire? I don't think so. I kind of see. Here's the thing with my parents is I always tell them to wait until things are ready, and that's always been the case. Like when I was in jazz band, when I was in college, and I was like, guys, like this performance, it's not going to be very good. Maybe you can skip this one. And I would like egg my parents on to just skip things. So I've been doing the same thing with Moonshire, where it's like once it's ready, I'm going to go all out and I'll ask them to play it. But at the moment, no, that's not really that necessary. How do I handle game marketing? I'd say that what I'm doing is all the game marketing I need. Someone asked earlier about wish lists. I'm not revealing the exact number of wish lists that I have, but it is more than plenty. So the strategy of just posting YouTube videos and basing it all off of that, and TikTok, by the way. I know that I'm mostly on YouTube now, but I got big on TikTok way earlier. In fact, I think I still have more followers on TikTok than I do on YouTube, which is ironic. But I like TikTok. It's just I don't use it as much anymore. At some point I just decided I'm spending too much time on TikTok, and I stopped using it. And then once I stopped using it, I lost all ambition to use it. I don't know why, which is sad because I like TikTok. I think that there are some hilarious videos, and honestly, when I go back on TikTok whenever and I start scrolling, there's always some weird video that will make me crack up. Humor is so busted. So like I have nothing against TikTok. It's just that I haven't been posting there as much. How do you deal with losing perspective on the quality of your game the more you play and work on it? I don't know. So that's something that I imagine a lot of people struggle with, but for me, I'm very conscious of all the incremental improvements. Maybe it's because I've been working on it for so long, and I still remember how the game felt and looked back when I was making videos on it with like Legend of Lua. When it was called Legend of Lua, for example, I remember very clearly what the game was like back then, and it's so much better now. I can feel that quality as I play it and as I look at it, really. It's getting better and better over time, and I'd say that motivates me. YouTube Shorts are better anyway. It depends. It depends. Because let's see, what are my thoughts? Because I like both. I like both of them. They're both different types of communities. YouTube Shorts have been doing really well in terms of performance for me, but I got a lot of really good performance off of TikTok too. I think it is what you put into it, because like TikTok, for example, I think I was able to stand out on TikTok because I was putting a lot of effort into my videos, and I don't mean this in a rude way, but a lot of TikTok content isn't very high effort. It's like you film with your camera for 60 seconds, maybe you add some music, and then you upload it. Whereas my video was highly edited, it was very scripted, very precise, and very informative. I tried to keep it entertaining, and it was always under 60 seconds. They were very, very good videos, and I think that helped me stand out a lot on TikTok. And it's probably the same thing on TikTok or on YouTube Shorts, where I don't know what the quality is like on YouTube Shorts, but I imagine it's kind of similar, where it's kind of aimed more towards fast-paced content or things like that. Man, the game is behaving a little bit weird when it's low frame rate like this. Yeah, I'm like getting 30 frames per second. That's kind of annoying. I enjoy the long form videos and the 2-hour stuff over shorts. I personally do too. That's why I put more focus on that in general, because I like making content that I myself would watch / listen to. And my thing with YouTube is I don't really watch YouTube very much, but I listen to it all the time. So I tend to have a video playing on my phone 24/7, either like a podcast or a video I've listened to before or a Let's Play. I have something playing on my phone, and even though I'm not watching it. And I think that my streams work with that really nicely, because I listen back to all my streams every single time. So like this afternoon, I'm going to listen through this VOD because I like listening for any ways that I could improve. I'm still on the lookout for all the stuttering I do. I'm still stuttering a bit in this stream, but it's not nearly as bad as usual. And I always notice some little quirk. Like I'm on the lookout for music tracks that are too loud or too quiet, so then I can edit those. And mouth noises, certain phrases that I say that sound weird. And I get... And I just also look for any cringe-worthy moments, because I don't like being cringy on camera. And like whenever I sing, it gets really cringy, and I'm like, let's tone it back, buddy. We don't need to be singing on camera, on stream, on my YouTube channel. That's not necessary. So I don't even remember what I was going off about, but that's what I'm thinking about right now. We need some deathcore. Some deathcore in the music playlist. That would be an interesting idea. Yeah, instead we're listening to Pokemon music. Have I ever played a game that you can't stop thinking about for months? Oh, totally, yes. I'm trying to think of the last time I experienced that, though. See, like, the magic of games hasn't been as strong with me probably since I graduated high school. No, when I graduated college, because all through college, I was so into games. Like, I treated it as like a full-time job, going through all my games back there and making sure I was really well played. And I was really into buying and selling games on eBay. So this isn't even my full collection. I'm still buying back some of the songs, or some of the games that I sold off. And as far as like a game I couldn't stop thinking about for months, I mean, when I got back into like old school RuneScape, I got so into like thinking about my strategies and my priorities. I think that's really fun. Or Pokemon in general, I get really into team planning and planning out my routes or anything like that. I don't know. I'll think a little bit more about what made me think about it for months. That is an ultimate goal, though. Like that's a huge compliment. If someone played Moonshire and they said, I played your game and I couldn't stop thinking about it for months, that's like the highest level compliment you could possibly receive. Should I publish it for others to play or scrap it since it's a little interest? Well, I mean, it depends. So, I think that you should post it, but you should not try to sell it for money. Unless you think, if you think it's high quality and people would pay money for it, then go ahead. But I think for most people in their hobbies, and this includes any hobby, this includes music or art or game development, if you're still new to the hobby, like a year or two, like don't treat it as a job where you're in it to make money, because people don't make money with paintings that they've made in their first year of painting. Like if you've only been playing guitar for 1 year, you're probably not at the point of producing an album and selling it for money quite yet. It's going to take a bit. So that's kind of my mentality with game development too. You should still post it. It's perfectly okay to post it online, especially if you're able to post it as an HTML like playable browser game. That would be amazing. I think that you should do that. And you should share it with your friends and get people to play it and get feedback on it. But don't treat things as a business. Don't treat things as making money until you're at a point where like you think that you can really invest the time and the commitment to make a product that's perfect. Because the other scary part about game development is that it's so competitive. Think about your game library on Steam. Like I go through my Steam library and all of these games, like these are all big hits. These are all big hitters. I don't really tend to buy games that aren't big hitters because there's so many good games out there. There's no reason for me to settle on something that's mid. And that's the scary part about game development, is that if you're charging money for something, it can't be mid. And we're seeing this in the AAA space a lot, where like these budgets are like $100 million for a AAA game, and then the game comes out and it's mid. And people will buy a mid game, but not enough to justify a $100 million budget. Do you think that being a game developer can make you money? Yeah, it can, but I'm not at that point yet, and I've been doing it for a long time. So if you had experience in coding, for example, you could go work at a game development company. Like I didn't have to quit and become a game developer independently. I could have left Microsoft and go to a game development company. Or honestly, I could have stayed within Microsoft and go to one of their like game studio sections. That would have been perfectly fine for me to do, and then I would have been making money as a game developer, and I would have succeeded at that goal. So yeah, you can make money as a game developer, but the way that you do it has to be smart. Because if you just go to school and you get a game development degree, I don't think that's going to be enough, because they're going to be hiring people with really hard, strong skills, like very talented artists, very talented programmers. Like the degree you have doesn't really matter to them. I mean, it probably matters a little bit. I saw a game called To the Moon. Do I recommend it? Not really. To the Moon is a RPG Maker game from a long time ago. I last played it July 11th, 2016. So 9 years ago is when I played this game. But this game is kind of cool because it's an indie game, and it was made with RPG Maker, which is a very easy game engine to work with. And the whole purpose of this game is to demonstrate that you don't need to be a programmer to make a good game. This is like a story-based, artsy, like simple puzzle game. And they worked around their own limitations to make something pretty good. And look, they're still making updates to it, which is crazy. I can't believe they're still making stuff about this. Have I ever played RimWorld? No, I haven't. I've heard of it, but I don't think I know anything about it. How many times have you sworn it worked yesterday only to watch it rebel today? That happened to me a lot when I was working as an employee, but since I started working on my own stuff, that doesn't happen nearly as much. I tend to have a pretty good understanding of the stuff that I'm working on, since, well, it's really easy when it's all code that I've written. But when you work for a company, the code that you write is going to be mixed in with code that was written by like 100 other people, or I don't know, however big the team is, 12 people. And that conflict of multiple people working on the same product, working on the same code base, it can be a little bit hard. And especially when it's been going on for like 20 years, there's some old products out there where the code base is from 20 years ago, and trying to do any of that stuff is kind of annoying, just gotta say. I use Asprite, which is just a program for like this, but there's a free version called LibreSprite. You could use any art program though. You could use MS Paint if you wanted to. So there's no stopping you. What editing software do I use? For videos, I use Camtasia. How do I feel about Lua being dynamically typed? Do I use Lua type annotation feature for? No. I mean, this is what I use Lua. I use tables in a very object-oriented way. So, for example, I have like this enemy's table, and when you spawn an enemy, it's going to create an enemy object and put it into the enemy's table using a set of predefined qualities, like this generic set defaults table or function, or this generic get stats function. And it kind of mimics object-oriented, because after that, then it goes into this like class split up, and then it gets the class list and gets the appropriate file for that class. And then it pulls it in a different file. So like this is when I was talking about the slime file from earlier, how the enemy obfuscates all the like complex logic, and then the slime file just has all the configurations, like what its animations are or what its size is, and so on. Have I ever made a board/card game when I was a kid with paper? I'm sure I did. I'm certain that I did, but I can't think of specifically what that would have been. I know I did. I wish I could remember. I'm gonna see if I can find something, because I was recently going through my parents' basement where all my stuff was, and we found a bunch of some of my old artwork from when I was a little kid, and some of it's very funny. One thing that's really noteworthy about that is I was really into Kirby, so I found so many drawings of Kirby from when I was like a little kid. In fact, while I'm on the topic of Kirby, I'm gonna go get Kirby. 1 second. You guys are gonna love this. Behold, It's Kirby. That's a paper mache Kirby. And I found it in my parents' basement. It's pretty good. Ugh, okay, we're gonna put him down. What does Misty think of that? Alrighty. Can predict the next code. You're right. So that's GitHub Copilot. So yeah, when you are in a code file like this and you go to a new line, it's going to try and predict. So yeah, it read that the previous line was n.fall with a bunch of properties, so it suggested this thing called n.exit with a bunch of properties. And this code that it just created right now for me doesn't work. This is bogus, fake, nonsense code. It just made something up. And that's the problem with generative AI, is that it just makes stuff up. And you have to use your own human knowledge to figure out if it's useful or not. So we're not quite at the point where I think AI for coding is quite good. Kirby's Adventure, I love Kirby's Adventure. I was like, or I should say, when I was a kid, it was Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland, which is the GBA remake of Kirby's Adventure. Honestly, I think that's probably a superior version, because the original Kirby's Adventure has this really annoying lag problem where if there's more than one enemy on screen, the whole game lags. It's ridiculous. Visual Studio does that too. Yeah, I mean, so what I'm using is Visual Studio, and then I have the extension for GitHub Copilot, because you have to actually pay for this service to have that. You probably don't need this service anymore. AI has been growing like crazy, where there's a bunch of options now, because it used to just be a chat GPT, like that was the main thing, or GitHub Copilot, the same idea. But now you have a lot of like competitors in the space. So I bet there's like coding helper programs that do the exact same thing as this that you don't have to pay for. But at the same time, I do like how it's integrated into VS Code, and I'm a Microsoft fan. Guilty. What can I say? But back to what I was working on before. How I recommend learning level design? The only way to learn level design is to force yourself to do it, and that's the biggest thing that I was struggling with for so long, is that I just didn't want to do it. So after I forced myself to really dig into it, I got so much better at it so quickly. And now I look at the levels that I made like 2 years ago, or even 1 year ago. I look at those levels compared to what I can make now, and it's night and day. I'm so much better, and I never would have expected that. Because, you know, I think this is probably something that a lot of people do, where they say, I'm not an artist, therefore I can't do this. And I definitely do that a lot, where I kind of count myself out from even trying. And that was my thing with level design, where I just thought, well, I'm not an artist, I don't have an eye for this stuff, I probably shouldn't even try to design levels, so that's why I went in the procedural generation route. But after I started digging into level design and started just doing it, I realized that I could do it. It's just a skill like anything else. I just had to do it all the time, and yeah, I got better at it by forcing myself into it. And my levels are really good now, but like this one level right here, like this one, I've redesigned D2, because this is map D2. I've redesigned D2, I'm not kidding, probably 5 times. Just this exact same map, this one single small map, everything's been deleted and redone 5 times. And each time was a little bit better than the last, which is great. But it just means it takes forever when you do it that way. My throat is killing me. My throat is really, really sore right now. I just watched Shrek before stream. It's questionably funny. You know what? Hot take. I love Shrek. Shrek 1. I think Shrek 1 is really, really good. I think it holds up. I watched Shrek 2 for the first... Or not for the first time. I watched Shrek 2 for the first time since it came out last year. And I didn't like it as much as the original. I like the original more. Hydrate. Thank you. Man, my throat is really, really sore. Okay. Thank you for letting me hydrate. Why did I pick this genre instead of another? Just because this genre has always been a personal favorite of mine. I think it's pretty normal for like a young kid to play Zelda games and then dream about making their own Zelda game. And I'd say that's probably what I did. But this genre is big and hard and complicated. I also see a lot of people jumping straight into this as their first game. And this is just, it's just too much. A game like this, I've been working on this for 5 years, and I've made lots of games before this. So, I'm so sorry. I think I'm gonna have to end stream in 10 minutes because my throat is killing me. It's really, it's so sore. I don't know why it's so sore, but yeah, talking is aggravating a little bit. Shrek 5 trailer looks AI generated. Yeah, I didn't watch the trailer, but I saw the screen caps from it. Did I already try doing the pixel perfect effect on Love 2D? I'm not sure what you mean by that, because most of the game is pixel perfect, but there's some examples where it's not. Like the fireflies. You can see that some of the fireflies are smaller than others, and that's not pixel perfect. Or actually, like if you look really closely, the player's hand and the way he's holding the spear, it's not pixel perfect. There's a bit of a inconsistency. Or if I pulled out the Great Axe, this is not pixel perfect either because it's rotated pixels, and that's not perfect. So and that's kind of the point of my most recent short video, is that I personally don't think it's necessary as long as it looks good. It's your first game. Think about switching to a platform game similar to Hollow Knight. I mean, again, like even like a game like Hollow Knight, that's still pretty intense. If it's your first game, start with Pong. You might think that Pong is too easy or too boring or too lame, but if it's your first game, I promise that even Pong is crazy difficult. Because you have to know all the fundamentals. You have to learn how to do this coding stuff. You have to understand like the draw function, the update function. You have to understand like all the different graphics. You have to understand the intricacies of your engine, the ins and outs of using it. So it's still very hard to make a simple game like Pong, which is why I always say to start with something like that. It's really hard to make a game like this as your first game. And a platformer game like Hollow Knight, a platformer in general, probably is easier than this, but not by that much. It's still going to be complex because you're going to be using like physics and complex movement. It's still tricky. A game so big. Oh, I see what you mean. Well, I mean, you have to take that step at some point, going from smaller scale games where you're practicing to going to bigger scale games that you're hoping people will play. I'm with you, and if you do still feel overwhelmed making a game like this, then yes, switch to something simpler. But if like you're working in this sort of style, and it feels right, it feels natural, and you understand the different processes, then I'd say it's fine to go for it. Just always be aware that everything takes like twice or thrice as long as usual. I expected to have this game done and published and on Steam by now, but now I'm not even close. I got so much stuff to do. When can you expect a new demo? I'm not quite sure. I would like to say by the end of the month, but I've been saying that for a long time. Since I'm experienced with Game Maker, can you explain how to make every object its own instance, because when an enemy deletes, all other enemies delete too? Yeah, I think that's parent or global. I can't remember what it is. And so in Game Maker, there's a checkbox on the left-hand side of the object window, and it's something like, what is it? It's like parent or consistent. I can't remember what it is. If there's anybody in chat that recently used Game Maker, I'd love to hear that insight, because it's been quite a while since I've used it. Soon TM, exactly. That's a big old soon TM when the game will come out, or when the demo will be ready. Man, the frames keep dropping. I'm so sorry for my throat. My throat is pretty bad right now. I'm definitely gonna end in 5 minutes. Any tips for Love 2D? The tip is always keep it simple at first. And I don't know, understanding the main principle of love.load happens right when the game starts. Love.update is your update loop that constantly runs every frame. And then each one of those frames happens in love.draw. So like the main fundamental of getting the update function matched with the draw function and understanding how those things like interact with each other, that's a big one. And the other thing is how everything is a table, how like all my enemies are put into this table of enemies, but an enemy itself is just a different table. So enemies is a table of tables. So I'd say digging into the cool aspects of Lua and tables, because they're really powerful. That's a really good first step with Love to D, I'd say. Even Pong looks tough to make because of the bounce physics. And yeah, you could use physics, but the original Pong didn't use physics. It was just like linear static movement around, and it used math to calculate the bounce trajectories. Even in Pong, hitboxes are a whole thing. Yeah, it is. It is tricky to know like when does a collision occur, and when a collision occurs, what angle does it need to bounce off at? Will I visit a doctor? If my throat is still sore tomorrow, yes. But it just got sore overnight, and maybe I'm just dehydrated. Speaking of, I'll go ahead and hydrate again. But I was sick in December. I got COVID. And it started with a sore throat. A really bad sore throat. It was the worst sore throat I've ever had. And right now it's not as bad as it was, but I'm having trouble speaking. Like, I don't know if you can hear me, like, clearing my throat constantly. It's really bad. Any thoughts on Python and Pygame? So even though I never used Pygame, I do know that it's very similar to Love to D, and Python as a language is kind of similar to Lua as well. So I think that it would overall be a great choice. It's a Moonshire short day. I'm afraid so. I really am struggling to talk too much. So I'm going to be ending it in a few minutes. Do I suggest to use AI to know what you should do without using copy and paste? Yeah, I like the age of AI is going to be interesting because AI is only useful when you know what this code does. If AI generates code for you and you don't understand every line of it, I would say it's not going to be useful. I would say that it's really important for you to avoid AI until you're comfortable without it. And even the AI that I don't really use AI for coding. I still code all of this stuff from scratch, but sometimes I'll say something like X, or I'll say like X equals X times 42 plus DT times 12 or something like that. I'll make some kind of weird equation, and then when I click enter, it's smart enough to read this line and basically do the same thing for Y. So I let it do lines like this, but at the same time, you still have to know, is this line good? Because, by the way, this line that it gave me is also junk code. This won't work. Well, I guess this will work, but I don't use it. I don't have a property called X offset. It made this up. Yeah, look, it made that up. It came out of nowhere. So that's nothing. And if you didn't know that, I don't know. I think that'd be really, really hard if you didn't know what you were already doing with AI. AI would kind of be like influencing you in the wrong way. Reen, I'm in the house. I'm glad you're able to make it. I was talking earlier about how I'm probably going to be ending stream in like a minute or two just because my throat is sore and phlegmy and gross, and I'm struggling to speak a little bit. Respect meter just went up. I appreciate that. If you're referring to the AI stuff, my opinion on AI is mixed, because I think AI is going to make a difference in the same way that like when computers came out and spreadsheets came out, that was a really big jump, right? Because businesses used to keep track of all of their finances using pen and paper with like just a guy in a room manually calculating all the stuff. But then computers come out and spreadsheets come out, and now you don't need any pencil pushers anymore. You can have any unskilled person just manually enter in all this data, and then the spreadsheet handles all the complex, difficult stuff for you, and it does it with perfect accuracy. And that is good that technology exists, but it is bad in the short term because people lose their jobs. Like, people lost their jobs big time when computers came out because all of the pencil pushers who were doing calculations, like, they weren't needed anymore. And it's going to be a similar scary event when AI becomes really useful, where it's going to take people's jobs as well. That's the way technology goes. It's a sad aspect of it, and I'm not happy that people are going to be losing their jobs for it. AI is still not quite there either. I don't think it's super useful. Like I just showed it, it's sometimes useful with coding, but most of the time the code it generates is just not quite there for me. How did I learn coding? Just doing it all the time. But also, I got a computer science degree, so I was classically trained with it in a university. But really, it comes from experience, because I learned more coding from my job than I did with learning it in a classroom or learning it through tutorials. Those things are good for getting you started, but the only way to learn coding is to actually code a project. So make a game, make Pong. Even if you don't know how to code, you can still code a game. You just have to follow some tutorials for it. And after doing it a bunch of times, you'll be comfortable enough to do it without tutorials. And at that point, you'll know how to code. So that's my advice, is just pick a language, pick a framework, pick an engine, pick anything, whatever you want to work on. I'm sure you have some goal in mind. Do I think online coding courses paid can be a good coding source? It can be, but you really don't need that at first. I'd say start with just some YouTube tutorials. Like, for example, I have a YouTube video on my channel that's free, and you can do all of the coding in a browser. You don't have to download anything. So find my Lua coding tutorial. It's free, and just follow that. It's less than an hour long. AI is too far to displace workers. At the moment today, yeah. It can probably displace some things. Like, I'm sure like newspaper editors or articles are being written by AIs right now. But as far as like really drastically replacing people, no, it's not quite there. It's good for mundane tasks. Like with AI art, I was thinking about this the other day, how AI is able to generate 3D models. And that sounds dystopian, right? That it can just generate 3D models. So you don't need AI artists, or you don't need artists anymore, right? But no, it's not able to make good 3D models, but it could make simple stuff. So like, for example, let's say I needed a chair in my 3D game. Should I spend the day modeling a chair? Or should I pay for a pre-made chair asset on the Unity store or on itch.io? Or should I use AI to create the base model for a chair, and then I spend an hour finishing it into something that looks good? There's always going to be a mixture of these things. I don't think AI is going to be good enough to make like character models or a good looking finished chair that's fully textured and rigged if there's any animations involved with it. But I think it's going to help with doing like the mundane, simple, like boring, dumb stuff that is not very fun to work on. In the same way that like computer spreadsheets, it got rid of the mundane task of doing like pencil pushing math for a company. It's not really beneficial to anyone to have a human doing that. In the same way, it's not really beneficial to having a human do like very mundane patterning or texturing, or I don't know. I'm not saying that I don't want people to lose their jobs, but people shouldn't have to do boring, mundane, lame tasks. So it's that balance in the middle there that AI is going to be picking up in. And it's just going to be more and more of a topic as time goes on. But yeah, right now, it's not quite there. AI is just a human calculator, just like a calculator who can solve numbers. Exactly. It does mundane, simple stuff, but you're still going to need a human operator. You're still going to need human intelligence, human creativity, a human eye for artwork. I don't think that AI is going to be able to take over that for a very, very, very long time. But if it does, so be it. If I'm sick, I suggest drinking tons of water. Yeah, I'm going to be taking it easy today and drinking lots of water. I think hydration was my main issue. But yeah, I need to give my voice a break too. So ending stream early today is going to be really good for me. Is depth sorting as simple as comparing Y values? That's what I'm doing in my game. It literally is that every sprite has a Y value, and I'm just comparing them and sorting the list by Y value. But on that note, I am going to end stream for today. I definitely need a break for my voice because it's painful to chat at the moment. But I'll be back next week, and it'll be a full stream next week. I'll be rip-roaring ready to go, and we'll talk all about some fun stuff and do more Moonshire Monday goodness. But thank you all so much for being here. We had a lot of folks in chat. We had Woolly Mammoth, we had Castle Rain, Animatrix, Bask2, Nadalux, Dewey, we got Bash, and Ted Fraser. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate all your support, and I apologize again for ending stream early, but I think it's going to be for the best. I'll be back next week, and I'll see you all then. Bye, everyone.